Hi there, my name is Rose Millette and I have written a book. It's called The House of Mourning, The House of Mirth. And I'm going to read it to you. It is available on Amazon.com or you can get a Kindle version, $2.99. Not bad. Um, Anyways, this is my first novel and I'm working on another one right now, which is very different. A couple things. First of all, I have Parkinson's disease, so if you see me wiggling around or like this or something, that's because I have Parkinson's, and that's the medicine that I take for it. Secondly, I want to give you a little warning, I guess is the word. Um, there's a lot of rough stuff in this book, and murder and rape and incest and lots of sexy. So just be careful. If you're listening to it, put your headphones on, maybe. Bad language, too. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mom. Okay. Well, without any more blah blah blahing, I will begin. Part 1. Oh, let's see. The House of Mourning. November 1981. 11-year-old Cortez Tomas Haddon stirred in bed in his chilly bedroom. It was a gray Sunday morning in Bush Bay, and he was in the midst of a dream. His army was in danger of being completely sacked by their mortal enemy. He wore bloody, ripped, stinking clothes, over which was a tightly strapped breastplate, an enormous iron shield in his left hand, and a heavy bronze helmet upon his head. He stood on an embankment overlooking a great wide river. Looking up at his right hand, he found his sword glittering as he held it high above his head. He had climbed up the hill in order to give his army encouragement, a great vantage point to give a rousing speech. These men and women would follow him into battle, he knew for certain. He looked down at the river as the sun glittered and danced on the waves. Mesmerized by the liquid light, so bright he had to close his eyes for a moment. Time stood still. He heard the bells of the village cathedral ringing out across the land, a warning of armies heading their way. He heard the roar of the crowd below him and across the river. He smelled the sweet grass beneath his feet. Then in the distance he saw a number of the enemy's legions, so many he could not even count. He called down to the crowd, "Get ready! Get ready! They're coming! They're coming!" They answered him with a roar, turning toward the hordes of demons that were already in sight. He heard the musicians sing and play a weird triad of notes. The sound scared and invigorated him and the army. It stopped the demon horde in their tracks. Temporarily. There was a buzzing in his ears. He tried to ignore it, but it only got louder. He looked down and saw a shadow of someone standing behind him. The hordes of demons were advancing again. He watched as one after another of the flank of the army fell beneath the demons' feet. Feeling his breathing and pulse rise, sweat dripping from his brow. "Time to wake up now, son," a soft, deep voice whispered in his ear. He was confused for a brief moment. Opening his eyes, he realized it had all been a dream. The bells weren't ringing for him, and the buzzing was from his stupid alarm clock that he hadn't turned off the night before. Church bells were ringing out from the many steeples in his hometown of Bush Bay. Sunday. His mind awake and not able to recapture the dream, his thoughts drifted to the day ahead. Sunday to him just meant the day before he had to go back to school. His ma Rita never took him to church, but she figured she was doing him a favor. He wouldn't like it anyways. Maybe he would head over to the Red Mill and talk with Mr. Russell, the manager. They were friends of a sort. Mr. Russell knew he played a father figure in Cortez's life. Withstanding more than a century of crime, fire, murders, numbing winter winds, and several spring floods, the Red Mill was still operating in 1970 when Cortez was born. Living near the Divide and the Red Mill, he would wander into the more than 100-year-old saloon and hotel infrequently, just into the front part where new and old pictures hung that tracked the history of the Red Mill, marking the passage of time through the century. The current owners, Mr. and Mrs. Theodore Prentice, treated him like a dirty dog. They were a childless couple from the suburbs of Detroit who had a lot of money to sink into the ramshackle old building. They bought the red mill, rehabbed it after studying the history of the previous century, and now charged money just to walk into the foyer. And that meant to kids who usually had a black eye or a bruised face, they were not welcome. But the manager of the hotel, William Russell, sort of liked him, Cortez thought. At least he let Cortez hang around when the owners weren't there, and he never had to pay the $5 viewing fee. Mr. Russell was a guy who took a lot of crap because he was black in management in a profession where folks were not used to seeing a black man. And the people who stayed at the hotel thought they were better than anybody else anyway. They would give crap to anyone in that position. Mr. Russell was always polite to everyone and always solved problems, but he sure did take a load of crap. Cortez loved to loiter in the lobby of the hotel, feeling like it should be his inheritance. He so wanted to explore the rooms upstairs, or even sit in the dining room every now and then. Even Mr. Russell wouldn't let him go past the foyer, though. That was okay for now, Cortez reasoned. One day he would be back and buy the place outright. For now it was like a time capsule for him. One of the earliest photos was a blurry picture of his great-grandfather that he always stared at. It was taken inside the restaurant in front of the great bar that ran along the entire east wall, hewn out of great slabs of white pine and stained a deep brown. It gleamed in the dim light like it had a life force growing from within. Oh, how Cortez longed to peek just around that corner to see that bar. Mr. Russell said it was still there, that most everything was as it had been for over 100 years. Cortez had to give the Mitchells a break. If they let kids like him in, it probably wouldn't still be as nice as it was. He knew that for sure. In the picture, Robert Haddon, his great-grandfather, was just turning away from the camera, but he could almost make out his face. Cortez thought he looked like his great-grandfather. Haddon was the only male relative he could call father, even if it was only great-grandfather. Beside him stood great-grandmother Marguerite. That she was in that picture, and Cortez vaguely remembered her alive, intrigued him. It was like he had a direct link with Robert Haddon.